The image flickering on the screen was gaunt. Desperate in expression, I recognized too well. It was my father's face. Round me, the atmosphere in the command center pressed heavy, thick with things unsaid. My commanding officer, a weathered, two-star general, spoke in a voice low and grave. "Major, the asset is compromised. The FBI has been locked out. Blackout protocol is the only option. But the risk total data loss to the civilian entities substantial." He fixed his eyes on me, searching for even a flicker of doubt. "It's your call sign on the OP. Your decision." I turned back to the screen, to the man who had broken me, piece by piece. A strange clarity, cold and crystalline, swept through me. My chin dipped in a single, sharp nod. "Authorize it, General." Just a day before, the light had felt almost unbearable, and it was I who had been compromised. Father's Day 3 hours, I'd driven from Fort Meade, carrying that same fool's hope I always carried. Tangled up with dread, the setting was a suburban backyard, sunshine and lawn chairs. But for me, it was hostile ground. There stood my father, Robert's retired Army colonel, still filtering the world through his infantry past, a past he believed I'd failed to honor. And beside him, glowing in his approval, was Kevin, my brother, the golden son. He ran the multi-million-dollar construction firm that my father held up as the Whitmore family's true legacy. Glass raised, his voice rang out. To my son, Kevin IV, building something real with his own 2 hands. The small audience of neighbors and friends clapped dutifully. Then his gaze shifted toward me. Smile thinned into a smirk. "And Sarah's here," he added with a chuckle that cut straight into me. "Good to see you stepping away from those little computer games at that desk job." The crowd's soft laughter echoed with familiarity. I'd heard it all my life, every time my academic achievements were drowned out by Kevin's trophies. Another silent entry in my lifelong ledger. One more debt of dignity written down. Later, he cornered me by the grill, his shadow falling across me like a verdict. His voice dropped to a tone sharper than any parade ground command. "You, in that uniform, playing soldier, it's just a reminder of what you're not." His eyes drifted to the house Kevin had renovated, not to the daughter in front of him. "This day is about fathers and their legacies. You're not welcome here. It's for the best." He hadn't raised his voice. He didn't need to. That quiet dismissal cut deeper than shouting ever could. I said nothing, only nodded, then left. He didn't realize that by excluding me from Father's Day, he had put his legacy into the hands of the child he deemed a failure. To understand the choice I made the next morning, have to understand the 2 worlds I lived in. My family's world ran on double standards. One set of rules for Kevin, another for me. Christmas had made that brutally clear. I remember pine and cinnamon thick in the air as Kevin presented a framed photograph of a new office building his company had completed. My father, who I had only seen cry twice in my life, actually teared up. He cradled the picture as if it were sacred. "A monument to the Genza name," he called it, his voice heavy with emotion. The pride in that room pressed against me, until I could barely breathe. Later, after the excitement had faded, I told him my own news. He sat at the fireplace with a bourbon, and I explained that I had just received the Defense Meritorious Service Medal. My team and I had prevented a catastrophic cyber attack on the nation's power grid. He patted my hand, eyes already drawn. "Back to Kevin's building on the mantle. That's nice, sweetie," he said. "Does it come with a raise?" That was the first time he used the nickname, his little joke. Major misfire. To him, I wasn't a real soldier. I hadn't carried a rifle. I carried a security clearance. To him, that meant I was a disappointment. It was my mother, Eleanor, who came to me later. She always treated family peace like a fragile antique, something to be protected at all costs. In the kitchen, she whispered, "You know how your father is? His pride is tied up in the company. Kevin's work is tangible. Kay needs the encouragement." I nodded, though what she really meant was clear. Kevin's legacy mattered. Mine was meant to stay small, silent, and out of the way. The ledger ticked over again. Another entry in a lifetime of being told to diminish myself. That was one world, but the other world was mine. In that world, I wasn't Major Misfire. I was Oracle. That was the only name my team used in the SCIF, the windowless, secure facility at Fort Meade where the glow of monitors replaced sunlight. And the hum of servers formed the backdrop to every decision. There, I was not diminished. I commanded a digital battlefield. Vast maps of network traffic spread across the wall-sized screen. We have a polymorphic threat bypassing their firewall. I would say my tone steady and absolute. I need a full SIGINT workup on the source. Server, execute kill chain on my mark. And my team, some of the sharpest cyber warfare specialists in the nation, would move instantly, trusting my instincts without hesitation. My judgment wasn't questioned. It was depended on. General Madsen, my commanding officer, once observed us shutting down a hostile state actor attempting to breach the Pentagon's network. He didn't offer speeches afterwards, just a single nod. Good work, Oracle. From him, that was the highest praise. Respect I never had to beg for. In that world, I wasn't a footnote in someone else's story. I was the one safeguarding the entire book. For years, I had tried to translate my life into their language of tradition and pride. But their language only had one currency: undeniable, visible power. After Father's Day, I stopped trying. The world itself was about to provide a translation my family could not ignore the morning after. Back at my workstation, the chaos of family felt a million miles away. The sterile focus of my domain was a relief. A red alert flashed across my monitor. Tier 1 priority. Coffee forgotten. I scanned the report. A zero-day ransomware attack had crippled a major East Coast construction company. Every server, every file, every system frozen. My eyes dropped to the target name, Jensen Construction. A stillness settled over me. Not triumph, not yet. Something colder, sharper, the clarity of an equation resolving to a single solution. My phone buzzed violently against the desk, vibrating across the surface. 88 missed calls, all from my father. And Kevin. I watched it pulse again before pressing down on the power button until the screen went black. This wasn't revenge. This was protocol. As the day unfolded, the scenario advanced exactly as I expected. The ransomware strain was new, advanced, impenetrable even to the FBI's cyber division. Per federal guidelines, any hostile state signature against critical infrastructure triggered escalation. Jurisdiction shifted from law enforcement to the Department of Defense specifically. Us Cyber Command, and the case, by the impersonal, flawless logic of the system, landed on the desk of the lead analyst for that threat group. It landed on mine. That afternoon, General Madsen entered my office without knocking, tablet in hand. His expression was unreadable, Major, he said, gravel in his voice. The FBI has formally requested our intervention in the Jensen Construction attack. I know the name. He let the silence stretch. This puts you in a compromised position, but it also makes you the single most qualified officer in this command to handle it. The mission takes precedence. I now designate you as the operational lead. Your call sign, Oracle, assumes full command of this response. Those 88 missed calls weren't pleased for forgiveness. They were frantic demands for the family's IT girl. They had no idea what they had triggered. They weren't reaching out to a relative anymore. They had become a case file. And that case file sat squarely on my desk, awaiting my decision. A muted digital chime announced the secure video teleconference. On the primary display, Jensen Construction's glass-walled boardroom flickered into view, a scene drenched in chaos. My brother Kevin, usually so meticulous in his grooming, was slouched in a chair, his tie loose, his complexion drained. My father Robert looked diminished, almost spectral-like, a man haunting the ruins of his own fallen empire. An FBI liaison stood beside them, stone-faced, while every eye turned toward the camera with desperate expectation. They believed rescue was coming. Kay didn't realize judgment was. Hidden in the shadows of the SEIF, I stayed outside the cameras. Frame while General Madsen settled into position. The seal of U.S. Cyber Command loomed behind him, an emblem of unshakable authority. The FBI liaison's voice cracked faintly through the speakers. Mr. Jensen, as explained, this incident exceeds our domestic capacity. Jurisdiction has been formally transferred to the Department of Defense. He gestured toward the general. You now fall under their authority. My father straightened, puffing up with a familiar but fragile sense of importance. He was attempting to mirror power back at power. But Madsen's voice hit like a thunderclap, annihilating that thin facade. Mr. Jensen, I am General Madsen, commander of Task Force Chimera. Your company is under attack by a hostile state actor. This is no longer a business issue. This is national security. Robert Jensen, forever the retired colonel, chasing recognition, latched onto the hierarchy instantly. Whatever it takes, General, my company and all its resources are yours. His words dripped with irony. His empire was in ashes, his authority hollow. He didn't even grasp what resources meant in that moment, or who truly commanded them. General Madsen studied him for a beat, then delivered the pivot that would shatter the room. Your operational commander for this incident is our lead analyst and authority on this hostile group. She will brief you. He motioned to the empty chair beside him, and there it was. Every dismissive laugh, every patronizing pat on the head, every time I had been erased from my own family's narrativette all funneled into this one step. I emerged from the shadows and into the frame. My Class A uniform was flawless, my insignia gleaming. I sat with military precision and fixed my gaze directly into the camera, directly at them. The transformation on their faces was immediate. Kevin's jaw literally dropped. My father's expression, however, was unforgettable. His mask of bluster didn't just crack, it disintegrated. Color drained from his skin until he looked waxen and hollow. For once, the man who always had a lecture ready could not summon a single word. He was staring not at his daughter, but at a U.S. Army major, proof of his most devastating mistake. I let the silence hang, my authority filling it. Then I spoke with the flat precision of a briefing. Mr. Jensen, I am Major Sarah Jensen. My call sign is Oracle. He winced at the name. The family misfire was gone. Oracle had taken her place. I laid out the tactical reality. We've isolated the malware. Our only viable option is counter-protocol blackout. It carries a 60% chance of restoring your systems, a 40% chance of triggering a failsafe. That will wipe them completely. I leaned forward. The legacy you've spent a lifetime building will live or die within 5 minutes. Your authorization is required. For years, he had lectured me about the sanctity of the chain of command. Now, staring at me through that secure feed, he finally understood it. His answer came broken, almost inaudible. Authorize it. All his pomp, all his dominance boiled down to 2 words of surrender. I didn't bother watching his face. I had already seen enough. Turning to my team, who were poised and waiting, I gave the command with a single nod. Execute protocol blackout. My voice was steady, absolute. Then I rose. The outcome, salvation or ruin, was irrelevant. My war had already been won. I walked out of the SCIF, the heavy door ceiling shut behind me. Duty completed. The personal tether severed. 6 months. Later, I stood under the lights at Fort Meade. The auditorium buzzed with ceremony, uniforms gleaming under polished floors. General Madsen affixed the silver oak leaves of lieutenant colonel to my shoulders. His words rumbled quietly for me alone. Colonel Jensen, your detached handling of the Jensen incident is already taught at the War College. To define mission. Leadership. Congratulations, Oracle. There was no awkward family gathering afterward, no forced conversations. Instead, my team, my chosen family, surrounded me with cheers and laughter. They didn't see a disappointment. They didn't see a misfire. They saw their commander, their oracle. That celebration was not about bloodlines. It was about respect, competence, and shared resilience. That was belonging. That was family. Weeks later, in my new office overlooking Fort Meade, an email pinged. Sender, Robert Jensen. Subject: Father's Day. The irony landed like a punch. I hovered over delete, then clicked. The message was 2 sentences. It's next week. I would be honored if you would be welcome. I read it over and over. Honored, welcome. The 2 words I had chased in my youth now arrived as a late, fragile plea. I felt no anger, no triumph to stillness, like the calm after a storm. He wasn't a monster anymore, just a diminished man finally speaking a language he no longer had the right to use. I archived the email, not erased, simply shelved, a relic of a past that no longer defined me. Turning back to the window, I understood. My peace was not his to grant. It was a fact I had built on my own terms. He had finally learned how to welcome me. But I had already built a world where his invitation was irrelevant. A legacy isn't inherited. It's earned in silence when no one is watching. And if you've ever built your own table because there's had no seat for you, share your story. Here, your expertise is always welcome.